Season 2, Episode 6 with Rachel Carden. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. Got another special episode with a guest today. Rachel Carden recently launched WPCampus, a new community movement, sort of like a WordCamp, but for higher education. So we're going to dive into that momentarily. It was a great episode. She brought a lot of great knowledge, as expected, to the table. So it's going to be great to hear from her. But what is the show all about? If this is your first time here, this is a podcast all about WordPress businesses specifically. And if you are somebody who is launching a WordPress product like a plugin or a theme or maybe even a SaaS business based off of WordPress, this is the place for you. We talk about that. We talk about how to fund these types of businesses sort of with client work, or maybe you have a day job, that kind of thing. And normally my co-host Devin joins us. But today he's off on the sidelines once again, so we can hear from Rachel and learn a little bit about the higher education space, which will also help folks who are out there like me, who are consultants, wondering how to interact with a university or a college. Because there are some nuances, like any other sort of particular business, there are some nuances that you have to learn in order to speak their language, in order to understand how their organization works. And like I said before, Rachel really brings it to the table today. She dives deep into why universities do what they do, the sort of intricacies of working with multiple units and trying to have a cohesive overall brand. And I felt like that was a very important conversation to have, especially for you, my listener, because again, I get a lot of folks who ask me, how do I get out of the $500 client? Or, I lost a bid because they said that my bid was too low and they expected a higher bid and they just felt like I couldn't do the work. I think a lot of this stuff is based on fear, and fear because we don't really know what that business is doing on the other side. In other words, you don't know the lingo. You don't know how they interact with each other. You don't know how they make decisions. And that was very much true for me when I first got into doing work with other colleges and universities. Didn't really understand the sales process. I didn't know how long it would take them to make decisions. I didn't understand their budgetary constraints. So hearing from Rachel and understanding even further from her particular point of view is definitely great. It's definitely a great learning session. So again, if you are a consultant and you're wondering, how do I break into the higher ed space? This is the place for you. And we'll be back next week with a new episode with Devin and I, catching up on our product launches and what's going on with that. So as always, thanks for listening. If you can leave a review, that would be amazing in iTunes. Just go ahead and search for us in iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and give us your feedback. We'd love to read it on the show, in fact. And if you want to join the mailing list so you can stay connected to when we release these new episodes and you want to be the first in line to listen to them, it's mattreport.com/subscribe. Let's get on with the show. We're taking a break from that conversation and interviewing somebody who's been on my radar for quite some time. And I only know her as Bama Designer. Like every time I see your name fly through the Twitters, it's all I ever see is Bama Designer. But Rachel Carden, now recently launching this new initiative. We're not sure if we're calling it a meetup, a conference, but WordCampus. You can find out more about that at WPCampus.org. And we're certainly interested to talk about what that initiative is all about, the idea behind it, how it got started. But first, Rachel, introduce yourself to the audience, who you are and what you do at your day job.
Well, hi, I'm Rachel Carden. I'm a web developer and designer at the University of Alabama. I work for the Division of Student Affairs. So if you're unfamiliar with kind of how higher ed works, it's a lot of departments and a lot of organizations and a lot of units just kind of all working together. It's very much like a little town, and it's a great community to be a part of. So I don't necessarily work out of the office that makes our main homepage, but I work for Student Affairs, and I do all of their front end web work. So any of their and then the division of student affairs is made up of like 40 departments. So pretty much any website that falls under student affairs, I manage and take care of. And I'm pretty new in this position, only about 4 months. And so I'm in the process right now of actually migrating all of their websites from a cold fusion environment
Whoa, boy.
to WordPress. And so I've already moved over about 3 or 4 sites, and now I'm working on the big main student affairs site and getting that all set up. So it's pretty exciting and pretty busy.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, folks that do follow along, if this is your first time listening to the Matt Report podcast, I run an agency as well. And one of the things that we run into, and I should say that we've actually focused a lot lately on higher ed stuff with colleges and universities in our local area. But it's very interesting for me to see that universities, especially, like you said, under the umbrella of student affairs might be 40 different departments, which may have 40 different of their own websites in some cases, but still separate from the main site. And I'm very interested in that. Like, why isn't there one big decision to use one piece of technology? Is it just the nature of the beast? Things sort of just pieced together as things moved along. Maybe Alabama has some kind of effort to sort of centralize on WordPress as their content management system. I guess what I'm getting at is WordPress capable of solving this huge content problem that maybe these larger universities face?
I totally, very much yes. So something else that's interesting about higher ed is that it's different at each university. How they manage their websites is completely different from each university to the next. And there's so many factors at play. There's size. We have over 37,000 students, and we're very decentralized. Excuse me. But there are some universities that are centralized, and it doesn't necessarily depend on size. I think that Vanderbilt University, although I'm not quite sure how big they are, they're not small though, or maybe, I don't know. I know they're centralized, and so basically, to kind of sum this up, the difference being that if you were centralized, then maybe all of your web would come out of the same office, and you'd have a larger team, and that team would take care of everything on campus.
Yeah.
Here at Alabama, we're decentralized in the sense that there is no one main web shop that takes care of all web needs on campus.
Gotcha.
Everyone's kind of on their own, and it's not necessarily the ideal situation, and it's also something that I think that people on campus are talking about now, that we might try to change a little bit of how we do it, because it does have some problems in that sense of that it's really hard to have cohesion. It makes it harder on branding because everyone's doing their own thing.
Yes.
We do have some branding standards, and we do have a very small web policy. But at the end of the day, pretty much anyone can do whatever they want as long as they, follow the little bit of branding standards, have the word mark and stuff like that, and as long as they meet the web policy, which pretty much just means to follow the branding and to put some, links in your footer, and that's pretty much it. So it has pros and cons. I mean, so you can have freedom to, I guess, do what your department needs, because it might be different from what another department needs. But sometimes at the end of the day, if a user comes to your department site, and that's the first site they go to, and you don't have the branding right, or you don't have, your site may not be all that great, then that's the only site they see for the entire university. They didn't start out at, ua.edu and move down and see the overall kind of brand and vision. They only saw what that department said. Mm-hmm. And so there's pros and cons, and it's a tricky thing. Web governance is an interesting topic.
Yeah. So that was the biggest surprise for me, right? So like many of the agencies out there, WordPress agencies out there, we started with small little marketing sites for folks locally, and then we sort of moved up the chain, and over the course of time, really started to deal with either partnering with larger advertising agencies that just needed like the WordPress tech help, and we sort of partner with them kind of behind the scenes, or we work with like B2B people, customers who are much corporate, but which also has its own complications, by the way. But the glue that sort of held the project together was marketing and branding. Like in some of our more corporate clients, sure, some division was launching this website, but they still had to sign off through marketing and branding. And recently we did an implementation of a student affairs for the student affairs of a fairly large university. And that was the biggest surprise to me, that they could do whatever they wanted. I mean, they had to use the logo, and of course, like the primary dominant color scheme, but people could do whatever they wanted on their own website. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing that they could do that. I guess what are the complications? Maybe you haven't seen it yet, but have you had complications like that where the sort of microsites are building things that just really don't align well, and how do you corral that so people don't have a field day with like sliders and large blocks of content everywhere on their site? Or is it just impossible?
It's not impossible. It's hard to get started.
Yeah.
So if you're in an environment where there's been no governance and there's then it can be tricky to get that started. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's kind of like getting over that stigma of people thinking you're what we refer to as like the web police.
Yep.
And people don't want to be the web police.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's getting people in the university to understand that, we're all a part of the university, and we all need to represent the university well. And I get it. It's finding that balance between like making departments feel like they can be unique, but on the other hand, you're a part of the university. We're here to represent the university. We all need to work together to have this, certain level of quality. Mm-hmm. And something that I've run into a lot, or just the notion of like, it's really kind of mind blowing a lot how some units I've witnessed this at several universities, how certain divisions within the university, they don't necessarily want to be tied to the university.
Right.
I have witnessed in several, pretty much every university that I've been at, that where you have to literally kind of have to rope people into using your branding.
Right.
And to just say that they're tied to the university. It's like, whether you like it or not, you're a part of the university. Right. And it kind of blows your mind sometimes how much you have to fight it. And it's really tough. I sat in this past week on a leadership academy where like web governance was like the big topic, and that's pretty much what we talked about for 2 days. Mm-hmm. And so it was encouraging to kind of get some information out of that, and some interesting books that I'll have to read. But it's something that we struggle with a lot here. I think is just kind of those rogues.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to kind of go to these people and pull them in, because we don't really have governance here.
Yeah.
And until we have that, it's kind of makes it a little difficult.
Yeah.
And we're not the only ones that have this problem by any stretch of the imagination. It's very common in higher ed, but I think that it's becoming more and more talked about, and it's exactly why we talked about web governance for like 2 days, and everyone in this academy, they pretty much all struggled with it. And so it's definitely, something that's hopefully will kind of come around here pretty soon.
I understand when a division for a product company wants their product page to look this way, because they're just trying to get conversions and they're just trying to make more sales, and it's just cut and dry. Whereas on this project that we worked on, like the legal department, wanted something totally different from the cafe, like the food services division, which I get, like it's different types of content, but like they just wanted like crazy, totally different sites. And I was like, what's the big deal with sticking with the brand? Do they all run it like with different goals, with different, striving for different things for each department? It just seems much more informational, these sites. They're not really trying to convert, so what's the big deal?
I think that, in my opinion, probably that a lot of it comes down to like, I think it all kind of comes back to branding.
Yep.
And a lot of, something that's very common in higher ed is just being under-resourced and having to do a lot with very little. Yep. So to reiterate, I'm one person doing the web for a division with over 200 people and like 40 departments and, managing all these sites. And I do have some help with design. I have a print designer who I can at least kind of help, bounce ideas off of. And I have some help with content, but the rest it's me. And so this is very common. And all that to say that you kind of combine that with, I'm setting up these websites and pretty much kind of putting it in the hands of like department people who are not web professionals,
right?
To manage these websites, and so thank you WordPress. And so, but that it's not it's not the ideal solution. The ideal solution is that we would have all kinds of web professionals that would be actually managing websites instead of putting them in the hands of people who are not only not web professionals, but they're not content professionals.
Right.
And so all this combined with, then you get people in departments who are basically planning out websites who are not web professionals, and they just kind of see what's out on the internet.
Right.
And so they want shiny things. They want their own shiny things. They kind of have this idea, I don't want to look like everybody else. I'm not everybody else. And so it's like a combination of that, and they don't understand the pros and importance of like cohesion and unified branding, and so it's all these kind of small things added together, and then you get people with power and who want their own site, and you get some higher up dean or something who doesn't necessarily doesn't also see maybe the importance of branding and having this kind of unified look, and so it's a lot of small things at play, and it's a lot of kind of politics, and it's a lot going on, and when I say all this out loud, it's like, man, my brain hurts.
Right, and you know what? That's a perfect answer. Like I wanted to hear that, and I hope that answer actually helps folks who are listening who may already be servicing college or universities, or even like a K through 12 environment. Like we have a bunch of K through 12 environment schools as well, and it's really the same thing. It's just multiply that by 10 when you get to the university level. But it's just that's some great insight right there as to why this stuff happens.
Thankfully, in like my current position, my boss sees the importance of branding, that we're all. So it's like in student affairs, you've got all these like departments underneath us that are like housing and parent programs, and they're doing all this stuff. And yes, they're doing different things, but at the end of the day, we're all working together to improve student affairs as a whole. And then it's like, it's like the notion of, it's like we want people to understand that when they support student affairs, say if they donate money or something like that, they're supporting all these divisions. So we want people to understand that all these divisions, all these departments under the division are together, and we are one unit. We are all working together. When you support one unit, you support another. And so we are, right now, all the sites, even in their state of cold fusion, they all have the same template. And so, we're working to redesign it and make it better and move it into WordPress. But when that happens, they're all going to have the same, template look and feel, because we want to have that unified branding, and we want people to understand that we are we are one division working toward the same goal. And on top of that, we will include, the general Alabama branding, because at the end of the day, we're supporting students at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
So.
And I can hear you. I can visualize and hear you making that speech, and everybody just saying, "But I still want to use the color blue," and you're like, "No, you can't." I have two questions along this line, and then I want to get into WP Campus, but. So you said about web governance, and everyone sort of has their own sort of ways that they want to build their site. So two questions here is sort of, how do you, like, in terms of WordPress, right? Like the technicalities of it, might be too technical. You might not even have it solved yet, but like, what do you do to allow people to customize their individual sites and pages so that they don't break things, but they feel like they have some flexibility? And then also, if that's not an option, I know that like some of the universities that we've worked with put us on a vendor list, and any of these departments can call us up and sort of contract out to us as sort of like a certified vendor. So when the legal department wants us to do something, they can contract us through their budget. So sort of two parts, if it's possible to answer, like, how do you solve that customization? And is there any room in there for sort of a good WordPress professional to come in and support support a university or a college at that level, if that's possible to answer?
Yeah, so as far as the customization goes, it's some people do it very differently. Something that's really big in WordPress in higher education is multi-site.
Oh yes.
I gave a talk like 2 weeks ago at WordCamp Tampa about using WordPress in higher ed, and basically said the words that I think multi-site was just made for higher education, because that's definitely what's used the most. And there are some universities that have, so probably one of the biggest uses for them is like faculty blogs and student blogs, but more so just the notion of like publishing networks. So some universities just have a WordPress publishing network so that if you need a site, and let's say you don't have a web professional, you can come get on their network, and there's a handful of themes you can pick from. You're limited. I'm sure that they limit what plugins and stuff go on there. Some I don't know of any examples off the top of my head of folks that definitely do this, but like. Mm-hmm. You could easily set up a web services model with that, of the notion of like, hey, for free you can have this, but maybe for a cost per month or per year, we'll add some customization in and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that some universities do that. I have no doubt.
Yeah. Do you look for people to hire to help you with projects at all?
Not yet.
Okay.
We do have some tools. We have like one vendor that we use, but it's not a WordPress thing.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't mean that folks don't do it.
Sure.
So I know that even here, some folks have hired agencies to come and maybe redesign or just to manage their website because they don't have a web person. Mm-hmm. And so I know that happens. I also see if you can find I just posted my slides from my talk yesterday, and in it I talked about some different needs and use cases for that are in higher education. And so I see a need for like a lot of plugins mm-hmm. and stuff that don't exist, that some WordPress developer could build and sell or for free or however. So on top of just like themes and stuff, there's definitely a need for some plugins. Mm-hmm. And there's like 4 or 5 slides in my presentation where I just list them all out. and if you want to go in there and look at that list.
I will definitely get that list and post it in the show notes.
Yeah, so I'll make sure you get the link. And
awesome.
So, but I've kind of in the back of my mind, I'll probably never get around to doing it, but the notion of like a theme framework just for higher education, maybe a couple exist.
Yep.
But there are definitely some like kind of things that exist in higher ed, some features, I guess you could say, that exist in higher ed that could definitely just be implemented in a theme framework that people would use. Like people directories are big. and like course management and stuff like that, or an intranet system that people can use. I saw a really great presentation this week from Jeff Stevens at the University of Florida Health System. I don't know what their full name is, but he built an intranet system for them using WordPress and WordPress and some other WordPress tools, and that was really cool. And I hope Jeff would come and share that with WPCampus. I know he will, but so there's lots of really neat use cases for WordPress in higher ed, and some have been discovered and taken advantage of, and some are yet to be built. So there's definitely some opportunity for a WordPress developer to kind of get in with higher ed and bring some real value.
That's awesome. That's an amazing answer. I really appreciate that. Let's transition now over to WP Campus now. So
yes.
The sort of sentiment so far is the tools are either out there or they're almost coming out there. There's some opportunity for folks to build stuff, and now we have this meeting place that we can talk about this stuff and really and really stimulate that innovation, which is sorely needed in the higher ed space in terms of WordPress. So give us the rundown. Why? How crazy were you? How much wine did you have that night? No, I'm just kidding. Tell us all about it.
The jury's still out. So it started on Twitter, actually. Basically, I think they had announced WordCamp US. And Chris Lima had tweeted something along the lines of, "It looks like WordCampus when you write it out," which is very true.
Yep.
And so I was like, light bulb, and I was like, man, y'all dream with me a little bit.
Yep.
WordCampus, using WordPress in higher education, and it kind of like blew up from there. And so I, started. I'm a little bit of a community organizer. I can't help myself, and I just keep starting these communities because they're so amazing.
Yep, I hear you.
I love communities. So I started kind of scheming, for lack of a better word, and I talked with Brian Krogsgaard over at Post Status and said, "Hey, Brian, I've got this idea. Do you mind if I, write a guest post on Post Status and, kind of share it with the world?" And he was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And so I threw together a website, and in the beginning I called us WordCampus, because why not? That's a perfect name. And I wrote a kind of guest post on Post Status, and I launched a website with a general just kind of form to show your interest, and just kind of, I got so much great feedback, and everyone was so excited. And so basically my whole kind of, and you can still read my initial pitch on Post Status if you're interested, but I wanted to kind of throw out this idea of not just basically a WordCamp for higher ed, essentially conference, but also just the community. We can be so much more than just a once or twice a year event. We can be this constant source of discussion and sharing and professional development and education. And so right now we have a Slack channel with probably close to 200 people. Yep, 197 members now.
Yeah, I was just looking.
I just pulled that up. And over 300 people have filled out the form on the website and shown interest. So anyone from someone who's interested in attending or interested in speaking or planning, and then people who are interested in hosting an event at their university, and then people interested in sponsoring. And everyone that I talk to about it is so excited, and so many people have just offered to volunteer their time to help it grow. And just people from just plugin developers who are like, "Hey, if you want a free license and use it on the site, you can have it." And that keeps happening, and it's so amazing. Folks over at WordPress, for folks over at WordPress, the folks over at WordImpress gave us a free license to use their Google Maps Builder plugin, and which is pretty cool. And so we use that to show all our data on the website. So if you go to wpcampus.org/planning/data, you can see all the data that we've collected from the forms laid out in this little, these different charts and maps. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so it shows where all the people that are interested in hosting, where all the attendees are from, so we can kind of get a feel for maybe what areas we should focus on for maybe our first event, stuff like that. And so this past week I was at Hyatt Web Conference in Milwaukee, and we had a bunch of people from our community there at the event, and we were all on the Slack in our own little HE Web 15 channel talking about the event. And then at the event itself, I ran into so many people who just wanted to talk about it, and we threw around ideas, and so I've had a great response, and everyone's really excited. We've had 2 planning meetings, and we meet in the Slack channel, which is interesting when you have like 40 people in this chat room, talking about stuff. But it's been really great because you can just tell that everyone's really excited about it, and everyone has so many ideas. And so we just have to wait and see what happens. So we're really excited.
Yeah, it is truly awesome. And I know as a server, so I wear a bunch of hats, of course, but as a WordPress enthusiast, it's awesome, right, to see that this stuff is just growing. The use cases and the different potential of meetups and conferences is always awesome to see. And then as the service provider, being able to give my clients some access, not that I have anything to do with it, but just to recommend it, just to be able to say, hey, look, I understand that you might be one person, because we deal with the same thing. There are at our larger universities, there's teams of people that we deal with, and at our smaller colleges, there's one person going crazy and trying to fix a printer all at the same time. So being able to say, hey, here's another resource that you can use aside from us, I think it's just awesome, and I can't wait to see it happen. So, do you have? I think I saw some emails and some conversations. I was away on my honeymoon, so I kind of got lost in everything. But is there a location for the first one yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
And so we're going to talk. We have our next planning meeting on Monday.
Okay.
This coming Monday, and so that's kind of what's up for discussion.
Okay.
So we have some ideas, and so nothing is set in stone yet. But I think what we hope to do is to have the event probably. I think we. I hate to say this out loud and be wrong, but I think we decided that probably early summer is best, and so that's what we're kind of shooting for right now. And so, but between now and then, we are also discussing other ways that we can, kind of embed our community and grow it more, and maybe get it involved in, other events, so other WordCamps and stuff like that. And so we're working on some stuff and working on some resources that we can provide. And so until then, we're just having lots of fun in Slack.
It is a good time for sure. Well, hey, look, I'm always voting for either the Boston or Providence area. So
that's definitely big. Probably the most interest areas are Boston, and then there was a lot in North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
And then the Northwest was probably the third most popular area. So we'll see.
It's awesome. That is awesome. Anything else that you want to chat about regarding that? Has there been any difficulties, aside from the logistics of like picking a location, but a lot of folks here are trying to spin up their own communities, maybe more business oriented or branding and marketing oriented for their own products or services. But has there been any speed bumps or difficulties that you didn't expect, that you might have said, "Oh God, why did I get into this?" that people should steer clear from?
Now with WPCampus, what's been so. I manage a couple other communities, and this is by far the biggest. And really, everyone is so excited, and everyone wants to help, and everyone, it's just like, Rachel, what can I do? And they're just, and so I've been blessed in that regard. And so really, I'm sure there will come a few stumbling blocks. right now we're just kind of mulling over some possibilities, and we're very much we're very much in a research phase right now.
Yep.
So it's kind of just taking in all the ideas, and we've even discussed a few partnerships with some people and stuff like that. And so it's kind of we're a little early, I guess, for stumbling blocks, but I'm sure they will come.
Yeah.
If you're as a community organizer, I guess some advice that I could give is just, as I guess kind of like have a mission statement and try to keep in mind, why you're doing what you're doing.
That's real good.
Because I have some smaller groups, and they can be a little tougher because it's just not everyone has the passion that you have, and it can sometimes make the days a little hard and the projects a little challenging, and you have this vision and you have this excitement, but you're the only one carrying the banner, and so. Right. But I keep reminding yourself why you're doing it, and so sometimes you need to sit down and tell yourself, and also it also can come in handy when maybe there's some folks in the group who are maybe taking things off track a little bit, and you have to rein them in a little bit, and this is why we're doing this, guys. We're not doing it for whatever. But if at the end of the day your community, it doesn't have to bring 3,000% value. So I have this one group, and it's like I'm always telling people, if at the end of the day all we do is come together once a month and we have a place to chat and see each other and talk about a few things and just have that camaraderie, then that's okay by me. We don't have to change the world. Not every community has to change the world. Yeah. Some communities you just need that little bit of difference, and that's all that matters. And so, try not to, and also just try to keep things simple. Don't. I had this one group I did one time, and I just got so gung ho and so I was going to use all the tools, and I was implementing all this stuff, and no one used it, and we didn't need it, and I wasted all that time. And so, to start WPCampus, all I had to do was throw up a one-page website and created a Slack account, and that was all. That was it. Yeah. And so, keep things simple and start small, and then kind of grow as needed. Yeah.
What you are defining is the entrepreneur's dilemma right there that a lot of folks listening to this podcast go through. I go through it every single day, where this idea spawns in your head, and then next thing you know, you're thinking, okay, well, I'll have the site done, I'll do all this automation ready to go, branding, I'll set up a Facebook page, and then it's like crickets. And then the one thing that you do is hey, I'm just going to tweet this one thing out, and then next thing you know, it's 300 people are following you, and they're in their Slack channel, and you're like, that took me 2 minutes. How did that even happen?
So now, after we've all been meeting and chatting, we're throwing around the ideas of setting up a BuddyPress install, and we're chatting about these things that now we see that we need and could benefit us. Yeah. But what if I had set all that up before and we didn't need it? Yeah. And so definitely.
Yeah. I tell you, and you said something before that was just spot on. Was so many people as passionate and as driven as you might get about an idea, it takes 20 times the effort to get, in most cases, other people interested in. I had the same thing when I launched WPMentor.org. I made a blog post about mentorships and how beneficial they've been in my career, and so I do a lot of mentorships for kids in college, and people are like, oh, that'd be great for WordPress. And I spun up WPMentor.org. I bought a theme. Try to get people to list their accounts for people who wanted to be mentored and people who wanted to be mentors. And I thought there were going to be a lot more passion behind it. I put up the forums, BuddyPress, BBPress, everything. And it was just again, it was like crickets. There were some good connections that actually happened. But I didn't continue to push it as much as I should have. One of these days I'll sort of spin it up again and get it going. But I totally hear you on, it's easy for you to have the passion, but getting everybody else involved might take a little bit more than what sparks you. So good stuff. Rachel, it's been an awesome episode. Where can folks find you on the web so they can join this new movement, and where they can find you if they want to contact you?
Well, you can join our community at WPCampus.org. There's just a simple form to fill out, and in that kind of gives us a little bit of information about you, but also allows you to sign up for our Slack. We'd love to have you. Lots of great folks in there chatting about all kinds of stuff. Today, right now, we're busy talking about multi-networks and stuff like that, and we're sharing jobs, and we're talking about different events. So we'd love to have you. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Bama Designer and BamaDesigner.com. Although that's really just kind of like an info page. But mostly you can find me on Twitter, and I'd love to meet you on Twitter.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for doing the show. Everybody else, it's mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. And as always, the show is brought to you by Conductor Plugin. If you want a builder without all the heavy overhead of other builders, check out conductorplugin.com. Thanks, everybody.